Hello and welcome to another episode, this time with Professor Christo Kaftandjiev. My name is Josef Mühlbauer and today I have the honor to introduce to you Christo Kaftandjiev. He is a professor at the Sofia University Sveti Kliment Ohridski. He is a Ph.D. and Doctor Habilis on advertising, semiotics and marketing communication. He is specialized in Holland at the Cito Institute. Christo published many scientific articles and several books, one of which is Absolut Semiotics in an Absolute World. And dear Christo, I thank you very much that you followed my invitation for this interview.
It is my thanks. You are one of the most famous persons in your field, world known, so everybody will be honored to be with you and with your distinguished audience.
Thank you for your kind words. I'm not sure I'm I'm that famous, but thank you very much for your words.
Definitely.
You wrote several articles and books about semiotics and through a semiotic lens. First of all, let us begin with this topic, and then let's move on from here to sexism in advertising, and then on this book. So first of all, what does semiotic mean, and how do you use this approach in order to write scientific books?
Yes.
Let us begin from here.
Okay, semiotics is the science of all science systems. For example, linguistics studies only letters and words. But in our communication, we use a lot of science, not only words and the letters. We use colors, pictures, movies, music. Because you're from Austria, for example, Mozart, Beethoven, music as science system, also quotes, architecture, smells, etc. So we can use everything around us as science to communicate. And semiotics is a great science with a great history, a great present, and a great future.
So, and you wrote an article on this was also very interesting on fear in marketing, especially in the field of banks, insurance companies. How does fear work? Is that some sort of manipulation, or how can we understand this approach?
Okay, just because this is my field, I'm professor in communications, so we can use here two concepts. One is persuasive communication and another is manipulation. Persuasive communication is when we express the truth in a relatively honest and pleasant way. Manipulative communication is when we lie and deceive the other communicators. In terms of marketing communications of insurance companies, it is normal to use fear appeals. The reason is that the insurance companies protect us from the troubles and accidents we fear, diseases, natural disasters, theft, and especially wars, which is, how to say, the topic you are so involved, war not peace. Of course, everything has some limits. Unscrupulous insurers can exaggerate disasters, and in this situation, their acts will be manipulative. Unscrupulous politicians can similarly manipulate political information, and they can initiate even a bloody war, which is very often in the history and even in the recent history. So your question about the fear appeals is very important.
Absolutely, yes. Especially in the field of peace studies, we can see that yes. Governments,
communication, manipulation, peace studies.
That governments try to manipulate masses and make fear. The Russians tell us that there are not all Nazis in the West, and the West tells us that tomorrow the Russian is knocking on our doors and invading Vienna.
Europe, yes, Vienna. As the Turks some centuries ago.
Yeah, they are knocking on our door again. Fear is a constant, how to say, constant attribute in our
yes,
society. Yes, we can
and
see that.
in our psychological conditions, we are almost always in some fear conditions. So
Yeah, it works. Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, we can say that. So this was a great article of yours. Let's move on to the book. I read it many years ago in Bulgaria. I lived there for some years. And unfortunately, I don't have the book anymore, but it was in Bulgarian called Sexът и насилието в рекламата, which means sex and
violence in advertising,
and yes, and violence in the advertisement and in advertising. And you showed many also pictures and advertising that contained not only erotic material but also some sort of violence, maybe explicit, maybe implicit. And let's move on and discuss this book. What was the idea? What is the main, the main findings and
yes. I would like to say that first of all, the headline is a little bit manipulative, as we spoke, because as you said already, sex sells, but in advertising, this not sex appeals, but appeals of erotics. There's some difference between sex and erotics. That person are a little bit afraid because they're constantly blamed that they manipulate, etc. So they're afraid to use sex as in this explicit communication for adults. So the slogan "sex sells" also it's not quite true. There are many goods for which the sex appeals are counterproductive. Besides, the women are the most important consumers, and they are very annoyed by sex appeals. Not a normal woman sees herself as a sexual object. Unfortunately, only a few men understand this, but in advertising industry they know very well. So it's a lot of erotics, a lot of mild, humorous appeals. On it's not so sex, but plenty with examples. And by the way, because as me as Bulgarian, we are blamed that we are some savages in the Balkans, quite primitive individuals. Maybe because you know very well Bulgarian culture, even some kind of Baiganyu. Almost all of the ads I used in these books are from Western Europe. So if somebody is to be the blame, this is the Western ad persons, not Bulgarians, Serbians, Turks, Russians, etc. Western Europe. Sorry. And anyway, for example, because you are also part of this very civilized Austrian society, maybe all of these advertisement sets are very similar to these famous paintings of Klimt, the Kiss. It's a lot of erotics in Kiss, but you see in some very sophisticated way, Vienna at the beginning of 20th century, such a civilized city. So the Kiss of Klimt, maybe the next book we will write together will be the Kiss of Klimt from the standpoint of semiotics.
Yeah. That would be an absolutely honor. I'm not sure I can show the pictures because you analyzed a lot of them in your book.
Maybe if you like, we can do another interview just about this book, and I will send you a lot of pictures in advance.
Because they are quite interesting,
Yes,
and they are
they are
speaking.
very interesting. So,
Yes.
and we can analyze in details, and I'm sure that almost everybody will be interested, and the women will be not offended because they are not so explicit, but quite mild, civilized, Austrian way.
Yes. So now it comes to the point where we should discuss if women are a big chunk of the consumers, and if the slogan sex sells is not true or partly true, then it comes to my mind the question: is it pure ideology? For what reason are we doing this? Or are the top managers of these advertisement companies men, chauvinistic men, patriarchal,
Thinking, yes, exactly this. Exactly this. Unfortunately, our society is not postmodern. It is pre-modern, patriarchal, etc. A lot of men, they work in advertising industry, so patriarchal thinking, not feminist. But sooner or later, the situation will change, and we will that peace sell, not sex. And by the way, there is a lot of very interesting advertising campaign based on the idea of peace, and it's not social marketing communication. This is for products, Axe shampoo, which is positioned as sex article, but they managed to change this, and they use also United Nations Peace Committee. So, and the campaign was very successful, and they managed to increase the sellings because the women started to buy Axe. Can you imagine? So this idea of peace is excellent, and if you like, we can analyze this campaign in some of the future interviews. By the way,
yes.
I made one presentation in Belgrade, Serbia. There is one excellent university connected with United Nations University for Peace, and they were very astonished of this campaign, how successful was the idea of peace, and it doesn't hurt marketing sellings, just the opposite, boost sellings. So peace is great phenomenon.
Yeah, that is interesting, yes. And on the contrary, here in Vienna, despite the fact that Austria is a neutral country, we are cooperating with NATO, but we are not part of NATO. So, and in our constitution, it is written clearly: we are neutral. We are neutral state, and also we have in the past. Between the Soviet Union and between the US, we have also tried to, have
to balance.
To balance and to be neutral and to have good contacts on both sides. But nowadays, I am afraid I see a lot of advertising on the what is it called? The public transportation. And I see a lot of advertising for the military. So join the military and you will be free, make a career, and the military is presented like heroism and we fight for our nation, and a lot of sentiments come up when you saw this.
But by the way, it is very interesting. Last week I lectured in Palma de Mallorca, Spain, and not a single military poster in the whole island. And today I'm already 2 days in Edinburgh, Scotland, not a single military poster in Edinburgh. So very peaceful places. By the way, in Sofia, not a single military poster as well. So Bulgaria, Spain, Scotland.
But the neutral Austria must dig deeper.
No, but it's interesting because I was very soon also in Vienna, and I also didn't see a single war poster. A lot of Mozart chocolates, a lot of Klimt, a lot of music of Mozart, but not a single military poster. So I'm very astonished that something appeared in Vienna.
Yeah, maybe it's just now modern or phenomenon. We will see. I'll keep watching it. So yeah. Should we add something about the book Sexat in Насилие to about your book on sexism and violence?
Maybe if you like, we can do another interview. I will send you a lot of advertisements, and we can also illustrate. And it will be, I think, very interesting for our audience.
Yeah, that would be better. So we can move from picture to
Yes.
picture, explain,
and
dig
to-
deeper,
yes.
analyze. Yes,
And
yes.
from semiotic standpoints, and what is, I think, very interesting also from intercultural standpoints.
Ah, okay.
By the way, I also, because I'm lecturing all the time somewhere abroad, I did one excellent presentation about artificial intelligence and Gustav Klimt, the kiss. You cannot imagine how many images are created by artificial intelligence about this painting. So it means that maybe this painting is the most popular now in the world. So, and from semiotic standpoint, it will be very interesting, and also from intercultural, because it is interpreted from the standpoint of China, Japan, etc. So Klimt is genius, definitely. This product of this civilized Austro-Hungarian Empire, peaceful also, also peaceful, intercultural
Yeah.
state.
Very interesting. Yes, yes, yes. So basically, to sum up, semiotics is the investigation, the study, the theories, which also study how meaning is created. So, and how through communication, through signs, through symbols, through yeah, images. Yeah, meaning is created, and this also, one can say, maybe shapes the culture, shapes our worldview.
Yes,
Is it
definitely,
good? Is it bad? How do, yeah, we approach the world?
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of the most interesting branches of semiotics is pragmatics. And pragmatics doesn't study the science, it studies our attitude to reality. And because of our attitude, the science we use, because you are very involved with the peace and war. In Bulgaria, there are a lot of not so positive words about the Turks, despite of the fact that now our relations with Turkey are excellent. But because these words are negative, so they shape our mind. So if we would like to be postmodern, etc., we must escape from this negative signs. Because it is very easy for the politicians to initiate some war propaganda on the basis of these negative feelings and to start the war. For example, there is a lot of studies of war propaganda. Enemies are always villains, etc. So they are always villains, but there are, how to say, some national differences. For example, one is the villain from Anglo-Saxon standpoint, another is from Austrian, third is from Bulgarian, but the villain is always the villain. So maybe there's also a lot of pictures. So if you are interested, we can analyze this picture by picture.
Would be great. Yes, it is important also for
Yes,
our audience.
not only the audience to watch some heads show, sorry, and also it's not only posters, it's plenty with very interesting films, comics, computer games. For example, even transmedia. Transmedia means all kinds of communications together. For example, now the most successful transmedia is Star Wars, and it is also a lot of wars in Star Wars, even the headline. So Star Wars is excellent for analyzing this idea: peace, war, villains, positive heroes, beauties, etc.
I totally agree. And in the first anthology that I published with Maximilian Lakic, with a colleague from mine, in German, kritische Friedensforschung, it is in English, critical peace studies. There we have contribution from Ronald Tuschl. He is working for the University of Graz, and he analyzed the mythology and politics in the elements of politics in Star Wars. And
Star
he
Wars, my goodness,
and
great.
he analyzed the good versus evil, the dichotomy,
By the way, I'm sure that this is a great scientist, your colleague from Graz. By the way, Graz is also an excellent city. For example, speaking about war and peace, the armory. Maybe Graz was the main city against Ottoman Empire in the Austrian past. So the armories, but also excellent museum of modern arts in Graz. By the way, I also wrote one book about the archetypes, which I'm explaining all of these things we are speaking today.
you can.
Yes, I will send you this book as PDF, and the next time when I will be in the wonderful Vienna, I will take all the books with me for you.
Thank you very much.
But these archetypes are very important. And by the way, one of the most important scientists in mythology, because we spoke about, is Joseph Campbell. He was in Massachusetts University Institute of Technology, MIT, and his student was the author of Star Wars, Lucas. So Lucas wrote all of the screenplay on the lectures of Joseph Campbell. So Joseph Campbell managed to find such important things as mythology from the standpoint of peace and war. So such a successful transmedia as Star Wars was created on the basis of this famous scientist, as your colleague in Graz, for example.
Very interesting. This I didn't know. Very interesting. Yes, comparative mythology and theories. Yes, he had a lot of function of the myth.
Joseph Campbell is the best specialist in this hero mythology, mythology of the heroes.
Mystical, metaphysical function, cosmological function, sociological function of mythology.
I have one book, Heroes and Beauties in Advertising, and this book is totally done on the basis of Joseph Campbell. It's not my book, it is book of Joseph Campbell, but only transferred in advertising. So Joseph Campbell wrote about heroic myths, but it is just the same in advertising, no any difference. So Joseph Campbell was also great in advertising, I must say. So I'm very grateful to him.
Let's touch upon just shortly, because you mentioned it, archetypes. What is an archetype?
By the way, this concept is also created by the wonderful Austrian school of psychology, Carl Jung, and also the immortal Sigmund Freud. So they say for some archaic mental structures we do not understand, but we act on their basis. And for example, this is my book on archetypes. For example, the archetypes are about good and bad, happiness and the opposite, paradise and hell. But this is very abstract, and we have a lot of very concrete science. For example, we have dichotomy light, darkness. Light is part of paradise, darkness is part of hell. Light is part of peace, hell is part of darkness, etc. We have also high, low. High is paradise, low is hell. We have one very hidden archetype, left, right. Right is okay, left is very bad. This is based on our hands because we are very able with the right hand, and maybe 30, 40 archetypes I analyze in this book. So we act upon them. For example, beautiful, ugly, also men, women. But this archetype is not universal. It depends on the gender. If the gender is female, the hell is male, and vice versa. So this book is also very interesting, and maybe we can also connect this book with the idea of peace and war and how propaganda is done on the basis of these archetypes, and also plenty with excellent pictures, not only from advertising, but politics, art, cinema, comics, etc., etc. So
absolutely, yes, and there we can find also the, the hero man and
yes,
the weak woman, which should be protected. So we have
yes,
also
but also because there's a lot of feminist interpretation, it's also vice versa. Weak men and very strong women. So plenty of examples in advertising, for example, but also in action films. So this patriarchal way of thinking is almost dying, not so strong nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And these archetypes also, that we mentioned earlier, also shapes our worldviews.
Yes, but unconsciously. So we do not understand, but we behave in this way. So they are also very, how to say, very dangerous. If some intelligent communicator but nasty person use them, there will be a lot of troubles for the peace. And for example, I think the best communicators from the standpoint of archetypes is Catholic Church. You can find in Catholic propaganda all of these archetypes, left, right, high, low, light, darkness. So this Catholic propaganda is just great, extremely professional. But you see, very well educated religious persons. So this is the result. And also from semiotic standpoint, Catholicism by architecture, music. For example, music. This is the most important science system from the standpoint of archetypes, the most persuasive, manipulative. So for Catholic religion, the biggest composers worked: Haydn, Mozart, Vivaldi. It's also very interesting presentation with a lot of music. We can in some Saint Stephan Cathedral in center of Vienna.
Absolutely. I was now reminded of the ideas of the famous Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek. And Slavoj Žižek said that ideology function even if we don't believe it.
Yes. On subconscious level, definitely. Yes. This person is completely right. This is the most important, the most dangerous situation. Working on subconscious level.
Absolutely, yes, because like you said, intelligent people who studied many years, published even books and so on, they fall into the trap, and they believe that they are immune against propaganda, against
immune.
advertising. But
no, not at all. Even extremely intelligent and extremely educated people can go to this trap of archetypes without any problems.
Absolutely, yes. So let's discuss this wonderful book, Absolute Semiotics in an Absolute World. What was the idea behind it? If I'm correct, this book followed the first one about sexati насилието.
Yes.
This was the afterwards.
I use this book because the campaign is extremely creative and very rich, and with and because I lecture also advertising and semiotics, marketing semiotics, there are so many so successful ads in this campaign that with these ads I covered all semiotic concepts, illustrated them. So can you imagine how successful and creative is? And I'm sure that nobody was lecturing to them what is semiotics, what is archetypes, etc. But you see, when the creators are geniuses, the result, for example, Vodka Absolut managed to reach the same success as Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola reached this success for 130 years and Vodka Absolut only for 30 years. Can you imagine for 30 years to reach the global level of creativity, success, profit, financial profit? So it was one completely unknown vodka from Sweden, and now this is a world phenomenon, as Gustav Klimt, for example. So plenty, thousands of extremely well done ads on the base of visual metaphor. So, and there is also, by the way, one printed about Vienna, Absolute Vienna, and it is done with the idea of Mozart. So, from the standpoint of this Swedish vodka, the main element in Vienna is Mozart. So, you see, from my standpoint, it's not only Mozart, but Klimt as well. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. On page 37, like you mentioned before, there is one can find this dichotomy, this yin and yang. Also, in the Bible, we see this with hell and heaven. And here you put a list from this perspective, like positive, negative, yes or no, public and private, true or false, indoor, outdoor, east, west. Primary, secondary, and many others, male, female, and with this goes along also what is my problem with this is the hierarchy. Male are bigger, stronger, better, and more intelligent than women, and so on and so forth. And so with this kind of dichotomy and narrative, you transport your ideology, hierarchy, and even power. So,
but you see, this is depending, not always many stronger, etc., depending on the political ideological situation. For example, now in some primitive society, definitely male is positive, stronger, etc., but I'm not sure that this is the case in Vienna or in Edinburgh. So postmodern societies, so female standpoints are now very strong in Western Europe. So it depends on the context. By the way, context is one of the most important part of semiotics. We have not some kind of absolute science. The science depends on the context. In one context, this science is positive. In another context, this is negative. So when we analyze all of these things, we always must think about the context of this science.
now that I am opening it up, there one can find on page 74 the famous liberty symbol from the revolution of 1830 in France, of the July Revolution. Yeah, the Marianne. And
Marianne.
Marianne, yes, and a symbol of the French Republic and French Revolution, and personification of the liberty, equality, fraternity, and so on. And now here we have it in the.
Yes,
I'm not sure
Gavroche.
one can see it, but yes.
Yes, it's very well. You demonstrated very well. So this is the painting of the Croix they used. The liberty leads the nation, and you see, for example, because French culture. Speaking of the context of French culture, they are very connected with the beautiful women. And for example, it's not only the Croix. A French sculpture created the Statue of Liberty for United States is also very beautiful woman. And even nowadays in France, they have one very beautiful woman as a symbol for 1 year, for every year. And this is a real woman. For example, 1 year, the symbol of Mariana for France was Brigitte Bardot. And I think the next year it was Catherine Deneuve. Can you imagine how important for the French culture is the beautiful woman and how strong is? And it's not by chance that this industry of luxurious goods, perfumery, accessories is so strong in France. But in this situation, French culture is very similar to the Austrian culture. So from my standpoint, I do not see any difference between France and Austria, civilized countries, etc. So I cannot understand why it was such amount of wars in the past between Austria and France. Civilized countries, etc. And also a lot of the rulers, the very successful rulers of Austria, were women.
When you say we are more civilized, I'm smiling because we are like barbarians who eat with knife and fork, but nonetheless we are barbarians.
Barbarians. If you know the Balkans, so anyway, not barbarian. How to say the top of civilization? As for example, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Now, when you cannot imagine what amount of museums, galleries, architecture, parks.
Yeah,
parks,
in this sense,
very
sense,
green city as Vienna, for example.
Absolutely,
so,
yes.
ecology, very clean rivers, etc.
Yeah, from this standpoint, you made a good point. Yes, yes. I'm talking about our structure, capitalism, sometimes dysfunction, democracy. We also go to war. France was involved in the war in Libya. From my perspective, from peace and political science, it's it's not that perfect, but maybe we can here we can for example portray the Scandinavians.
Scandinavia is my goodness. I always saying to my students, this is the future of the world, Scandinavia. Sweden, Norway. Denmark is more capitalist, but Sweden is very social. But also Denmark is a wonderful place also.
Absolutely, yes.
I lecture from time to time in Copenhagen. So excellent city, parks, museums, smiling people. Smiling
Nice,
people.
nice. One day I should go to Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, yes. Maybe we must go together.
Yes, because one
Definitely.
of my favorite philosopher is there, Søren Kierkegaard.
Kierkegaard.
Yeah, he is great. Left Hegelian, and I'm not sure I understand every book of him, but it's okay. Yeah.
Maybe from the standpoint of semiotics, we must go together in Estonia. In Tartu, this is a very old university city in Europe, was lecturing and working the most famous Russian semiotician Yuri Lotman. So, and I worked 3 years in Finland in one university and lecturing marketing semiotics, and always saying to my students, Finnish students, you can read Yuri Lotman, he's great, a lot of books in English, the greatest semiotician. And they smiling, and one day in the university came the Estonian prime minister. Can you imagine Estonian prime minister and his lecture in front of the student, and he said, dear students, Estonia is a very small country and nobody knows what is Estonia and where is Estonia, but everybody knows that Yuri Lotman is working in Tartu. So, and after that, all of my Finnish students rushed to the library to read Lotman. And I said, you see, when some stupid Bulgarian is saying read Lotman, no any reaction. But that Estonian president, Yuri Lotman is maybe, not maybe, this one of the greatest semioticians as Roland Barthes, as Umberto Eco. So, and also, by the way, a lot of semioticians who were involved in philosophy per St. Maurice in United States. So they created this philosophical branch of semiotics per St. Maurice.
Sounds very interesting. I only heard from Roland Barthes, but the others are not.
Roland Barthes, Umberto Eco, and
Umberto Eco
Yuri Lotman,
also,
they
I
are
know.
linguists as education, so not so involved in philosophical study. But by the way, Roland Barthes was excellent in mythology and semiotics. So he wrote one very famous book about mythology and semiotics.
Well, yeah, definitely we can recommend these books and these philosophers. Maybe because I see that also the final question that I had prepared, we also touched upon it. The question was, what can we learn in the peace studies from your work, and from how can we use semiotics in order to understand war propaganda? We touched upon it. So if you want to add something, did we left anything aside? Should we add something?
As all of other communications, the propaganda of war and peace, they also use all of the science systems. And there's, by the way, maybe not so few books about propaganda, whereas some of this propaganda is analyzed from semiotic standpoints. But maybe the both of us, we will write together one book about propaganda of peace from the standpoint of semiotics and philosophy. So maybe it will be very useful and interesting for the readers to see how the semiotics works for peace.
Absolutely important, yes, especially in this time where we see another Cold War and another bloc confrontation.
I will say not cold, but warm, even very hot war at the moment.
Absolutely, yes. The people
Yes.
who follow closely the situation between the West
Yes.
and Russia, between the US and China,
Yes.
also,
Yes.
and the proxies.
I have a lot of friends because I lecture very often in Ukraine and Russia. So a lot of friends from Ukraine and Russia, so I can understand. Even some of my colleagues from Ukraine now, they're on the front already. So It's tragic situation for both nations, tragic situation.
Yeah.
Even from Bulgarian standpoint, because we are excellent friends with Ukrainians, but also with Russia. So you can imagine from Bulgarian standpoint, what is the situation.
And I believe Bulgaria, as far as I can understand, is some sort of divided. Elderly people have some sort of nostalgia on the past and they are pro-Russian. They learned Russian in school, but the younger generation
Is more
learn,
westernized.
is pro-European, pro-westernized, they learn
definitely.
English. So the society, in my opinion, is divided.
Divided, exactly. You're completely right. Divided.
Absolutely, and so it's a generational component. It's also yeah.
Yes, my generation, for example, we were in Russian. I can lecture in Russian. It's not a problem. So I read all the time Russian.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So it's some sort of dilemma in Bulgaria, but I don't believe that Bulgaria would get involved. Despite that Bulgaria is a NATO member, I'm not sure that you can mobilize people to fight either Ukrainians or Russians or
yes,
whatever.
Yes, definitely.
I don't believe that.
It will be very difficult.
It would be difficult, yes. But we can easily send weapons.
Yes, weapons, yes.
we send weapons to the Ukrainians, but that's it.
Bulgarian defense industry is very well developed, so produce a lot of weapons, etc. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I think we covered everything up, and as far as I can see, we almost reached 1 hour. So yeah.
My goodness, poor audience, 1 hour. It's too much. Maybe 15 minutes are enough.
No, but they learned a lot. As far as I can tell, I learned a lot from your books and I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, most of them are in Bulgarian. So
yes, my book is about marketing communication against COVID, and it is published in English also. Marketing communication against, and now I'm translating this Absolut Semiotics also in English.
Perfect. That will be very important work, yes, for the Western audience.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So, with these words, we can call it a day. It was a great pleasure and honor to meet you, and I have read your books years ago, so it's a great honor and pleasure. I enjoyed the talk, and
for
thank
me
you very
it's a great honor to be with a person as you and with your very distinguished audience. So thank you very much, my sincere thanks.